The arena was quiet, except for the deep hum of the force fields. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, their strange eyes glowing in the dark. Some had sharp teeth, some had feathers, some had no faces at all. But all of them were waiting for the same thing. Blood. Across the galaxy, this arena was feared. Prisoners were sent here to die. No one survived. Not even the toughest species. The last champion was a 6-armed beast from Karul Prime. He lasted 7 minutes. Now it was Earth's turn. The gate at the far end opened with a loud clank. Steam hissed out. A single figure walked forward. A human. The crowd laughed. Some hissed. A few even threw things at the force field. The announcer's voice echoed through the air. Subject, human designation. Combat slave. 8829. Planet of origin. Earth, unarmed. No enhancements. A timer began to count down from 10. The human, a young man in a torn shirt and blood-stained pants, stood still. His face was calm. His knuckles cracked. He didn't look up at the crowd. He just whispered something to himself. Just survive. The gate across from him opened again. This time, the sound was heavier. Thudding footsteps shook the ground. Out came a beast twice his height, covered in metal plates. It had claws the size of swords. Yellow eyes locked on the human. The crowd roared. The beast charged. The human waited until the last second. Then, with a sudden step to the side, he rolled under the beast's arm. It spun around, but he was already moving, already thinking. He ran at the wall. It was high, smooth, impossible to climb. But he didn't try to climb it. He jumped, kicked off the wall, and flew towards the beast's face. A loud crack. The beast stumbled. Blood gushed from one of its eyes. The crowd fell silent. The announcer's voice cracked slightly. Direct hit, human. Wounded, the gladiator. Unconfirmed. The beast roared in pain and rage. It slashed wildly. One of its claws sliced the human's arm open. Blood sprayed across the sand. But he didn't scream. He didn't fall. He smiled. He dodged again. Faster this time. Duck. With elbow to the throat, knee to the ribs. Grab the beast's arm and twist. Another sickening snap. The crowd couldn't believe it. Neither could the guards. They looked at each other through the control room glass. Is he enhanced? One asked. No, we scanned him twice. He's baseline. That's impossible. The human tore a chunk of the beast's armor off and used it as a shield. When the beast rushed him again, he rammed the metal plate into its mouth. The beast gurgled, staggered, and collapsed. Dust rose from the ground. Silence, then a single scream from the stands, then another. Then the whole arena shook with rage and shock. The human stood over the beast's body, breathing hard, blood running down his arm, his eyes scanning the crowd. Then he looked up, straight at the cameras. You want a show? He said. Then keep watching. The control room was in chaos. Generals, scientists, and guards crowded around the screens. How did he win? One asked. He's human, another said. They're not supposed to be this strong. The screen showed his records. No military background. No cybernetic upgrades. Just human. Someone new entered the room. Tall, cold, wearing black armor. I want him moved, the figure said. Moved where? The guard asked. The man in black didn't answer. He just stared at the screen, at the human now pacing in his cell, hands wrapped in dirty cloth. Put him in Sector 9. Let's see what happens when he fights something that doesn't bleed. That night, the human barely slept. His cell was dark and cold. The food was a grey lump of something that used to be meat. He didn't eat it. His arm burned. He tore a piece of his shirt and wrapped it tight. His breath was steady. They would send more, bigger things. He knew that. He didn't care. He hadn't survived Earth's wars, its chaos, its betrayals, just to die here. He closed his eyes. He remembered his sister's face. Her smile, her scream when they took her. The sound of alien boots on Earth soil, the fire, the ash. They thought humans were weak. They thought wrong. The next morning, they came for him again. 2 guards with shock rifles. They didn't speak. Just opened his cell and pointed. He walked out without a word. The new arena was different. Smaller, quieter. No crowd, just cameras, and a cube in the center. Metal. Smooth. The human stepped into the cube. The doors closed. The lights shut off for 10 seconds. There was nothing. Then a loud hiss. A robot dropped from above. Shiny, fast, deadly, no emotions, no fear. It moved like lightning. So did the human. He ducked the first blade, caught the second, twisted, sparks flew. The robot adjusted and attacked again. Faster this time, but speed didn't matter. The human didn't fight with just his body. He fought with his mind. He found patterns, watched the rhythm, predicted. Then he broke it. A leap, a spin, a scream of metal. The robot hit the ground. In pieces. The lights came back on. The cube opened. The man in black watched from behind the glass. His voice was calm. He's learning. Another voice asked, should we terminate him? No, the man said. Not yet. He could become dangerous. He already is. In the cells nearby, other prisoners whispered, did you hear? The human killed the gladiator. He took down a drone. That's not possible. It is now. A small alien with 3 eyes pressed her head against the wall. I want to meet him, she said. Why? Because he's not just fighting for himself, she said softly. He's fighting for something else. No one answered. They all felt it, even if they didn't understand it. Hope. And that was more dangerous than any blade. The guards came for him again. No words, just cold eyes and charged weapons. The human stood, body still sore, arms wrapped in rags stained with dried blood and machine oil. He didn't ask questions. He didn't complain. He just walked. This time, they took him through a hallway he hadn't seen before. It smelled like acid and fire. The lights flickered overhead. The walls were marked with claw gouges and blast burns. Sector 9, one of the guards muttered to the other. He won't last 5 minutes. The human heard. He smiled. He had no idea what Sector 9 was, but he was ready. They brought him to a door thicker than any he'd seen before. It opened slowly with a deep, grinding sound. Inside was black. Pitch black. He stepped in. The door slammed shut behind him. No lights, no sound, just cold. Then, breathing. But not his something else. Was in there. He crouched low, listening. A shift. A scrape. He rolled aside, just as a massive claw tore through the space where he stood. Red eyes opened in the dark. For no 6 of them. The shape was wrong. It wasn't built like a beast. Or a machine. It was something else. He ran. It chased. He climbed. The walls, dodging blindly. Something acidic hit the floor behind him and sizzled. The stench filled the air. He grabbed a loose pipe, swung, missed, swung again. This time, it hit something. A scream, then silence. For a second, then the thing charged. Again, faster, angry now. The human didn't stop. He slid under metal debris, smashed lights, made noise, anything to disorient the thing. Then he saw an exposed power cable sparking in the corner. He dove for it, yanked it free. The creature lunged. He timed it, jumped, shoved the live wire into the thing's open mouth. A flash of light lit the chamber. The smell of burning flesh and metal, silence. He stood there, breathing hard. Lights flicked on. The thing was dead, smoke curling from its body. His hands were burned. His shirt was gone. His chest was covered in cuts. But he was alive. The door opened. No crowd, just the man in black. He nodded, impressive. He said. The human didn't answer. He just walked past him. Back in the control room, the scientists were scared. "This isn't normal," one said. "He adapts too fast." "It's not adaptation, it's intent." The man in black turned to them. "He's not trying to survive. He's trying to win." One of the scientists swallowed hard. "We created the arena to crush will, to erase resistance. But he's growing." "Exactly," the man in black said. "Let's see how far." The next challenge wasn't just one creature, it was 10 different species. All of them deadly. One breathed fire. Another spat venom. One had a sonic scream that cracked stone. They were not prisoners. They were trained killers. When the human entered, he stopped and looked at them. They laughed. A tall one stepped forward. "You're the human." He nodded. "You're dead." The gates opened. The match began. Chaos exploded. The Venom one struck first. The human threw sand in its eyes and broke its neck. The fire breather charged. He rolled under, grabbed its tail, and slammed it into the wall. Two more jumped him. He took a bite to the shoulder and still drove his elbow into one's jaw so hard the bones shattered. He was bleeding, limbs shaking, but his eyes were sharp. One by one, he broke them, crushed them, outhawed them. By the end, he stood covered in blood, his and theirs. Only one was still breathing. A four-armed reptilian. It tried to crawl away. The human walked over, kneeled, and whispered something no mic could pick up. Then he knocked it out cold. The crowd, watching from across the stars, erupted. The image spread like wildfire across galaxies. A human, alone, surviving, winning. The people of Earth, what was left of them, watched from hidden places and bunkers. They saw hope. The other prisoners saw something more. Rebellion. In his cell, he didn't sleep. He stitched his wounds with a needle he made from bone and thread from his pants. He tied splints with wire pulled from a vent. He used a small shard of mirror to look at his face. He barely recognized himself, but his eyes were the same. Then he heard a sound. Tap, tap from the wall. He tapped back. A voice, small and raspy. "You're the human." He leaned close. "Yeah, you don't have to fight alone." He paused. "Who are you?" "Prisoner 3347. They call me Stitch." "You got a plan?" "Maybe," Stitch whispered. "But we need more prisoners. More eyes, more hands." The human looked at his bloody hands. "I'll get them," he said. "I'll give them something to believe in." Over the next days, the fights kept coming. The arena kept changing. The weapons got deadlier. The enemies more vicious. But the human kept winning. Sometimes barely, sometimes with broken ribs, but always standing. And something strange started happening. Others began resisting too. A winged creature refused to kill its opponent. A poison spitter sabotaged his own injection line. Even guards started whispering. The human had become more than a prisoner. He was a symbol, and symbols are dangerous. The man in black watched it unfold. "End it," he told the warden. "With what?" "Everything." That night, alarms blared. The human's door didn't open. It exploded. Dozens of guards stormed in. Shock, rifles, gas, drones. He was ready. He fought like a storm. Using pieces of his bed, sharp scraps of his sink, parts of the wall. He took out 5 before they pinned him down. They shocked him until his body shook and his mouth bled. then dragged him down into the lowest part of the prison, a place no one had ever come back from. The pit. They thought it would break him. They thought it would be the end. But they didn't understand one thing. He wasn't just fighting to live anymore. He was fighting to end them. The pit was silent. No lights, no sounds, no air movement. Just cold. They dropped the human through a metal chute. He landed hard, rolling across stone that smelled like rust and old blood. His back burned. His head rang. But he didn't scream. Looked up. Nothing. Just dark walls. Too high to climb. Too smooth to hold. Then came the voice. "You're finally here." It wasn't from a speaker. It wasn't a guard. It was another prisoner. Or something close to one. A figure stepped out of the dark. Tall, thin, metal fused with flesh. One arm a blade, the other half gone. Its eyes glowed faint blue. "I'm what they send down when they want people to disappear," it said. The human stood, wincing. "What are you?" "I used to be like you, a fighter, a rebel. I kept winning. They didn't like that, so they made me part of the arena." "Did you fight back?" "I did." The creature lifted its bladed arm. "This was my reward." The human didn't flinch. "I'm not here to disappear," he said. The creature tilted its head. "Then you're here to die." It charged, faster than any enemy so far. The blade slashed the human's side. Blood sprayed the wall. He stumbled, kicked backward, missed another slash, this time across his ribs. The creature was faster, stronger, and it didn't seem to feel pain. But it hesitated for just a second, a glitch in its step, a delay in its swing. The human saw it. He started moving differently, slower at first, luring it in. Another hit his shoulder. He groaned, dropped to one knee. The creature raised its blade. The human grabbed a stone and slammed it into the blade arm's elbow. A spark, a hiss. The creature stepped back. "You saw it," it said. "The glitch," the human answered, breathing hard. "Smart. Doesn't matter." The blade rose again, this time for the kill. But the human wasn't there. He leaped, wrapped an arm around the creature's neck, and twisted with every bit of strength he had left. The machine part screeched. Wires tore, sparks flew. Then silence. The creature collapsed. Still but not dead. "Finish it," it whispered. "End me." The human stood over it, barely upright, blood dripping from his jaw. His hand shook as he raised the jagged stone, but he stopped. "You're still fighting," he said. "You just need to remember how." He turned and walked into the darkness. Above, the control room was in chaos again. He survived the pit. That's not possible. Nobody survives it. The man in black didn't say anything, just watched the screen. The human's vitals were red, critical, but steady. "Pull him out," one guard said. "He'll die in an hour." "No," the man in black said. "Let's see what happens when hope is all he has." But the human didn't die. He found a crack in the wall, just wide enough to crawl into. A service shaft forgotten by time. He dragged himself through it, every inch tearing his wounds open again. His mind screamed to stop, but he kept crawling. At the end, he dropped into an old maintenance room and found something he didn't expect. A child, not human. Big yellow eyes, thin arms, covered in dust and fear. The child looked up. "You're real?" it whispered. The human nodded, breathing ragged. "They said the human was dead." "Not yet," he said. "Can I help you?" He blinked. "Why would you help me?" "Because you helped the others," the child said. "You made them believe." The human stared at the little alien, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "I need a way out," he said. The child smiled faintly. "I know a way. My parents were engineers before they were taken. I listened, I learned." He nodded. "What's your name?" "Kix, Kix," the human said, holding out a shaky hand. "I'm Daniel." They shook hands, and the escape began, while the guards searched the pit. Daniel and Kix crawled through forgotten tunnels. Daniel barely stayed upright, but Kix knew where to go. Up here, past the heat pipes, through the vent. "Quiet, this is near the guard barracks." They moved like shadows. They passed old cells, some still holding dying creatures. Kix stopped at one. "We have to let them out. No time," Daniel said. "They'll help you." He looked at the creatures. Most were broken, starved, beaten, but their eyes lit up when they saw him. It took him only a second to decide. He smashed the control panel. The doors opened, the prisoners staggered out, blinking. "I'm not asking you to fight," Daniel said, "but I'm not running anymore." One creature, tall and armored in scarred scales, stepped forward. "I saw you in the arena. You're the one who beat the beast of Keiichiro." "I've fought a lot of monsters," Daniel said. "Good," the creature said. "Then you'll know how to fight the ones guarding the control tower." As the breakout spread, alarms blared. Guards scrambled. Doors slammed shut too late. The arena had turned into a war zone. Prisoners rose up, not just because they wanted to escape, but because they had seen one human do the impossible. And that meant they could too. Daniel led them. Wounded, half-dead, but alive with fury. They reached the central tower. Explosions shook the walls. Smoke filled the halls. Daniel kicked in the main door. Inside. The man in black stood waiting. "You made it," he said. Daniel stared at him. "You've been watching me bleed for weeks, and I learned something," the man said. "Humans don't stop, even when they should." He took off his mask. He was human too. Daniel's eyes widened. "What the hell? I was taken years ago. Chosen to run this place. I gave up on Earth. You should too." "No," Daniel said. The man nodded. "I figured you'd say that." They fought. It wasn't a gladiator fight. No weapons, no tricks. Just two humans. One who had forgotten what they were, and one who refused to. Daniel, broken and bleeding, still had more. He slammed the other man's head into the control panel. Sparks flew. Systems failed. The force fields dropped. The force fields dropped all across the complex. Cells opened. And the arena, the galaxy's greatest symbol of fear, fell. Not because of armies, because of one human who refused to die. The doors burst open. Aliens of every shape and size flooded the tower. Some limped, some dragged others. But all of them looked at Daniel. He stood barely upright, blood running from his nose, knuckles torn, ribs cracked. Beside him, Kix clung to the edge of the console. He looked at them all. He didn't need to speak. His body said it all. "We're not prisoners anymore." One of the big ones, a four-eyed brute from Neural 3, raised a fist. "For the human," it shouted. The room echoed with the chant, "For the human." Daniel didn't feel like a hero. He barely felt like a man anymore. He just nodded once, then collapsed. He woke up hours later. A ceiling he didn't know. Cool air, gentle light, and a face, not alien, human. Female. Mid-40s, scar across her cheek, short hair, tough eyes. "You're awake," she said. Daniel blinked. "Am I dead?" "Not yet," she said. "You almost bled out. Kix kept you alive." Daniel turned. The little alien was asleep in a chair nearby, drooling on his own shoulder. "Where am I?" "The freighter, Holostar. We're not part of the arena system. We hacked in when the uprising started. Rescued who we could." Daniel tried to sit up. Pain shot through his chest. "Easy," she said, pushing him down. "You've got 3 broken ribs, burns, and nerve damage. He looked her in the eye. "What's your name?" "Captain Reyes. Earth Resistance." Daniel's voice cracked. "There's still a resistance." She nodded. "Scattered, weak. But when you started winning, we saw the footage. The systems tried to block it, but word got out. So now what?" he asked. Reyes leaned back. "That's what I was going to ask you." Meanwhile, the prison moon was chaos. The control tower was taken. Guards either dead or fled. The warden's private ships stolen. The arena stood silent, a graveyard of monsters and glory, and the prisoners had started organizing. They were building. Some wanted revenge. Some just wanted freedom. But many waited for the human. Rumors spread faster than light. They said he could kill machines with his bare hands, that he broke the pit, that he turned enemies into allies with just a look. Some said he was a god, but Daniel wasn't a god. He was just angry, and he was tired of running. In the Hollow Star's med bay, Daniel finally stood, wrapped in bandages, slow on his feet. Reyes followed him into the war room. A large screen showed dozens of ships, systems, listening posts. "We have a chance," she said. Daniel squinted. "For what?" "To strike. Hard, fast. While the overseers are panicking. You gave them fear. Now we give them fire." He looked around at the crew. Not many. A few humans. A few aliens. All scarred. All serious. He stepped closer to the map. "They kept me in chains," he said. "Used me like a show animal." Reyes nodded. "They've been doing that to all of us." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we break more than just the arena." He pointed to a red dot blinking on the map. "The Overseer's hub. The broadcast station." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "You want to go straight at the command core?" He looked at her. "They made me famous across the galaxy. Let's use it." Back on the prison moon, Kix had stayed behind. With Stitch, the cybernetic prisoner Daniel had spared. Now, Stitch limped through the lower levels, gathering survivors. "You all saw what he did," Stitch said. "He fought death itself. And one belt. Send more soldiers," someone said. "Let them come," Stitch said. "The human showed us how to fight. It's our turn." One prisoner stepped forward. "We'll follow. But we want a symbol." Stitch stared at him, then raised a broken piece of arena armor, and scratched into it a mark, 2 lines crossing, like an H. "For human," he said. They held it high and began to build a new banner. As the Hollow Star approached the Overseer's hub, the alarms began. Fleet movement, shields active. Thousands of drones rising from defense platforms. Reyes turned to Daniel. "Still sure?" He nodded. "They watched me fight in the sand. Now they'll watch me break their system." She handed him a weapon. "Take this." He shook his head. "I don't need it." "Why?" He stared through the viewport at the massive silver station. "Ahead, because I'm not afraid of them anymore." The assault began fast. The Hollow Star dropped gemos. Fighters launched. EMPs cracked through shield walls. Daniel led the strike team. Reyes at his side. They broke into the lower decks of the station, fighting past auto turrets and security bots. One of the soldiers stared at Daniel mid-fight. He said in awe. Daniel just nodded and kept moving. Everywhere they went, the enemy hesitated. The guards had watched him in the arena, and they were scared. One even threw down his weapon and ran. Daniel reached the broadcast room, a massive control panel, a galaxy-wide signal. He turned on the camera and spoke. "I'm not a champion. I'm not a soldier. I'm just a man who got pushed too far." He leaned closer. "You watched me bleed for your entertainment. Now you'll watch your system burn." He stepped aside as Reyes uploaded the virus. The station's control systems melted. Across hundreds of planets, the arena signals shut down. Slave networks collapsed, broadcast towers failed, and in their place, a new message played. A symbol, the H, and 3 words, "We are human." The overseers watched in silence. High above the ruined hub, on their hidden moon, they gathered in a circle of gold and fire. None of them were human. Some looked like glass, others like smoke trapped in armor. Their voices were deep, ancient, layered. He destroyed the arena. He broke the broadcast chain. He united slaves from 100 worlds. One spoke louder. "He's just one man." "No," another replied. "He's the spark, the myth." They turned toward the center of the chamber. A single dark figure stepped out of the shadows. The warden, the same man Daniel had beaten in the control tower, but not the same. His face was burned half metal now. A red eye glowed in the socket Daniel had nearly crushed. His voice had changed to colder. "Give me permission," the warden said. "For what?" "To bring Earth to its knees." Back on the hollow star, Daniel was healing again. Faster now, kicks brought him food. Stitch sent him messages from the moon. The H was spreading. Rebels were rising on 10 systems. Slaves were refusing orders. Some guards switched sides. Reyes walked into his room with a datapad. "You need to see this." The screen showed Earth. And a fleet above it. Dozens of ships, the overseers, personal guards. Daniel stood up slowly. "They're retaliating." Reyes nodded. "They're making an example. They want to remind everyone who owns the stars." Daniel stared at the screen, jaw tight. "I was born there. That's where they took my sister. That's where they started this." "You can't go alone," Reyes said. "I won't." The message went out across the rebel channels. One word, Earth, and they answered, from ice planets and mining belts, from jungle worlds and asteroid prisons. Ships began to move. Alien and human, slave and smuggler, fighter and fugitive. Some had old gear, junk engines, cracked armor, but they had belief. The belief one human had given them. The warden stood aboard the lead overseer ship. Black steel, giant red markings, built to erase planets. He stared down at Earth. This place gave birth to a problem. Time to kill it. His ship began charging its weapon. The beam could melt continents. But before it could fire, something else appeared. Dozens of ships warped in around Earth, all different shapes, sizes. Rebels. The warden laughed. "You brought trash to stop me." Then the trash opened fire. Explosions lit the orbit. Shields shattered. Fighters screamed through space, dodging plasma bolts. In the middle of it all, the hollow star flew straight for the warden's ship. Daniel stood at the front, wearing armor, made from pieces of the arena, scarred but strong. Beside him, Kix gripped a small rifle. "This is crazy." Daniel smiled. "Yeah, let's do it anyway." They boarded the warden's ship through the lower docking gate, blasting their way inside. Reyes and Stitch flanked Daniel. Behind them, rebels flooded the halls. "Where is he?" Reyes shouted. Daniel pointed forward. "I know where he'll be." The bridge of the ship was silent when Daniel walked in. The warden turned to face him. "No crowd this time," Daniel said. "No need," the warden replied. "I've already won." "You think you can change the galaxy with symbols and speeches?" Daniel stepped closer. "Not with speeches, with fists." They clashed like titans. Metal fist against blood and bone. The warden was stronger, faster, augmented by alien tech, but Daniel had something else, purpose. Every blow the warden landed, Daniel took and returned. He remembered his sister. He remembered the pit. He remembered every scream, every cheer, every time they said he'd lose, and he punched harder. He shattered the warden's metal hand, crushed his jaw, ripped the glowing core from his chest, and smashed it against the deck. The warden fell hard, and this time he didn't get back up. The rebel fleet cheered that the overseer ships started retreating. Some exploded, others were taken over by their own crews. The battle for Earth was over, and the human had won. Again. Daniel stood on the ruined bridge, breathing hard, blood on his face, smoke rising around him. Reyes walked in behind him. "It's over." "No," Daniel said. "It's just beginning." She raised an eyebrow. "We broke the arena," he said, "but the system's still out there. You want to keep going." He looked out at Earth, blue and fragile. "They called us weak," he whispered, "but they don't understand what happens when humans get back up." He turned around. "Let's show them." The universe was shifting. Whispers spread across the stars. On planets where hope had been extinct, something new was growing. In shattered colonies, broken prisons, toxic minds, people were standing up, and at the center of it all was a name, Daniel. The human who had survived the arena, the man who destroyed the warden, the spark that became a fire. Daniel stood in a war room deep inside a rebel stronghold orbiting Mars. Screens covered the walls. Rebel leaders, some human, many alien, over plans and routes. But when he entered, they went silent. He didn't give orders, he gave presence. They had seen him bleed, seen him survive what none could. They followed because he didn't lead from safety, he led from the front. Stitch stepped forward. "Now fully rebuilt, with scavenged tech, we've decoded another Overseer relay station." "What's it hiding?" Daniel asked. "A-list," Reyes said, joining them. "Targets, they've marked the rebel systems, but one's different. Not a base, a ship, a ship." Daniel frowned. "Big one," Stitch said. "Older than the arenas. Something they've kept secret." Kicks, now Daniel's quick-handed tech expert, pulled up a grainy image. A massive vessel, half buried in ice. "They call it the Cradle," Kicks said. "We think that's where they started everything. The first experiments. The beginning of the arena program." Daniel's voice dropped. "Then that's where we end it." The Cradle floated above a dead moon on the edge of Overseer space. It wasn't guarded. That was the first bad sign. The rebels approached carefully. Stealth fields, silence. Inside, it was cold, still, long halls with ancient machines, humming quietly, symbols carved into the walls that no one could read. "This place is older than the Overseers themselves," Reyes whispered. Daniel walked ahead. The darkness didn't bother him. He'd faced worse. In the center of the Cradle was a chamber, with glass pods, hundreds. Inside each one a body, some human, some not, many of them familiar. Daniel stepped closer to one pod. His heart stopped. It was him, or someone that looked just like him. He turned to Reyes, shaken. "They cloned you," she said softly. Kikes was scanning fast, hands shaking. "They didn't just make arenas. They made champions. Over and over. Perfect fighters, just to keep the blood sport alive." Daniel looked around, rage boiling in his chest. "They didn't train us to win. They built us to die in front of a crowd." Reyes pulled a drive from one of the consoles. "We can expose this. Broadcast it everywhere." Stitch grabbed her shoulder. "We can do more. We can shut it down. Forever." But it was never going to be that easy. The Cradle trembled. Sirens blared. Doors slammed shut. They weren't alone. From the far side of the chamber, figures stepped out, taller than normal soldiers. Silent, faces covered by white masks, moving like shadows. The final defense, Overseer elites. The rebels formed a line. Daniel didn't wait. He charged. The room exploded into chaos. The masked ones moved like ghosts, slicing through the air with blades that HUMMED. Daniel fought too, at once, ducking, weaving, striking with everything he had left. He didn't win easily. He didn't win cleanly. But he won. One by one, they fell, until only silence remained. Reyes, bleeding from her arm, limped toward the core. "I've got it. We can trigger an overload." "Not yet," Daniel said. He stared at the rows of pods. Some still alive, others dead for centuries. He walked over to the one that looked like him. "Open it," he said. Kix hesitated. "Are you sure?" "No, but do it anyway," Steam hissed. The pod cracked open, the figure inside stumbled out, pale, weak, but breathing. He stared at Daniel with hollow eyes. "Who are you?" Daniel reached out and gripped his arm. "The first one who lived long enough to finish this." The clone nodded slowly. "Then make it count." Daniel helped him sit, then turned to Reyes. "Blow it all." She didn't hesitate. The core began to hum louder. The walls vibrated. The rebels sprinted for the exit. The cradle began to collapse. Behind them, fire filled the holes. They made it back to the hollow star just in time. The explosion lit up the dead moon like a sun. One overseer stronghold gone. But more importantly, the truth was out. Reyes uploaded the data. Billions watched as the secrets poured out. The arena was never about justice. It was entertainment. Population, control, fear, and humans. They weren't weak. They were made to fall. But one had stood up, and now they all were. In the days that followed, overseer systems cracked. Fleets rebelled. Planets declared independence. And the galaxy began to shift. Daniel sat alone for a while, watching the stars, thinking. Kix came up behind him. "They want to name a ship after you." Daniel shook his head. "I'm just one man." "Exactly," Kix said. "That's why it matters." He smiled, then stood. "We're not done," Daniel said. "There are still chains out there. And we're going to break them," Stitch said, joining him. Reyes nodded. Together, they looked up at the stars. 1,000,000 systems, 1,000 battles ahead. But one message burned brighter than ever. Humans fight, humans endure, and humans win. The galaxy was burning with change. Slave systems had collapsed. The arena network was dust. The Overseer High Council had gone silent. Planet after planet raised the H-banner, painted on walls, ships, even skin. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Hollow Star, now leading a fleet of rebel ships from dozens of worlds. His body bore the scars of every fight, tribs, wrapped in black armor, arms bruised and bandaged. But his eyes were sharp, focused. Reyes leaned over the map. "We've tracked the last signal." "Overseer Prime," Stitch added. "The source, the command mind, the core of it all." Kix nodded, nervous but ready. Deep in dark space. No system name, no trade lanes, just silence. Daniel stared at the blinking red dot. "So that's where this ends." The fleet jumped in. What they saw wasn't a station, it was a planet, metal, fused with rock, rings of weapons orbiting like claws. Overseer ships hovered in silence, motionless. "It's not just a command base," Reyes said. "It's their origin. The place the Overseers began, where they created the arena system, where they decided fear was power." Daniel turned to his people. "Today," he said, voice steady, "we finish it." They attacked. The fleet surged forward, shields raised, weapons blazing. The Overseer defense grid roared to life. Missiles screamed, drones swarmed, Starfighters exploded in fire and metal. But the rebels kept coming. Daniel led the boarding party, himself. They landed on the surface of the metal planet, cutting through walls and towers, pushing toward the core. The defenders were different here, tall, silent machines that moved like liquid metal. But the rebels had heart, fury, unity, and they had Daniel. He moved like a storm, brutal, efficient, focused. Every slash and strike echoed not just through steel but through history. Behind him, Kix planted charges. Stitch led the left flank. Reyes fought with 2 rifles, dropping enemies with a fury she hadn't shown before. Down this corridor, Daniel shouted. They reached the Overseer core, a cathedral of light and wires. Floating platforms, huge machines, humming with power. And in the center Overseer. Prime, not a being, not a mind, a vast intelligence, cold, watching them from every wall. It spoke, "You are anomalies, errors in our system. You should have died." Daniel stepped forward. "We did, again and again. You just never expected us to get back up. You cannot win. Watch us." The core pulsed and the room came alive. The walls unfolded. Dozens of defense drones burst from the floor. Daniel charged first. The final battle began. The fight was brutal. Chaos, screams, and fire. Daniel took hits, plasma slicing across his back, a blast tearing into his side, but he kept moving. Every second mattered. Reyes was wounded. Stitch lost a leg. Kix was pinned under debris. Daniel kept them together. And finally he reached the core, a single glowing crystal pulsing with alien code. He raised the weapon made from the arena's broken pieces. "From Earth," he whispered, and struck. The core shattered. The whole planet shuddered. Overseer. Prime screamed in static and shattered logic. The rebels ran. Explosions tore through the tunnels. Towers collapsed. Daniel stayed behind for one last second, staring into the failing lights of a system that had ruled for too long. "You should have never let me live," he said. Then he ran. The fleet jumped out just as the metal planet collapsed into itself, becoming nothing but fire and dust. The overseers were gone. Not hiding, not waiting, gone. A week later, Daniel stood on Earth. Real sky above him, blue, open. He walked through what had once been a ruined city. Now, people were rebuilding. Humans, aliens, together. Kids ran past him. One had the H painted on her shirt, another waved, "You're the arena guy." He smiled, nodded, and kept walking. Kix ran to catch up, carrying a datapad. "You got another message." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Another system's rising. They want to join the Free Worlds network. They say you inspired them." "I didn't do it alone." Kix grinned. "They know, but you started it." That night, there was no war. Just a fire in the middle of the rebuilt square. Music, laughter. Daniel sat beside Reyes and Stitch, now fully repaired and teaching kids how to disassemble rifles. "I didn't think we'd get here," Reyes admitted. Daniel looked at the stars. "We did more than survive." She nodded. "We changed the galaxy." Kix jumped onto the table. "To the man who broke the arena." Cheers rose. Daniel shook his head, standing slowly. "No," he said. "To the people who got back up, every time. That's what makes us human." The stars above shimmered, and somewhere, out there, in the darkness, others watched. Learning. Waiting. Because now, the galaxy knew the truth. No one survives that arena until they dropped a human in.